Hello, and thank you for joining me for another Tableau Prep tutorial. In this video, I'm going to walk you through on how to write the data you have meticulously transformed using Tableau Prep back to your database. If you are watching this video, then you likely already have your reasons for learning how to write data to your database using Tableau Prep and this capability's perceived benefits. But please allow me a moment to share one that immediately comes to mind for me based on my experiences with less technical users. Being able to use a low-code tool like Tableau Prep to transform data into an augmented or more consumable state for reporting purposes empowers those individuals that would otherwise not be able to do this on their own and without the assistance of a data engineer or someone familiar with data definition language and SQL in general. Beyond that, another benefit of this Writeback feature is your peers can also use the newly created table by simply referencing it in their flows, Tableau workbooks, and even other applications. Being able to use these tables within other applications may turn out to be quite significant. Say you or your organization does take that all too often heard about but rarely observed leap of switching from Tableau to Power BI. Those tables you created using Tableau Prep will be available for Power BI reporting because they exist in the database and not on your Tableau server as a published data source. Another key benefit of the Writeback feature is it supports the chaining of actions by allowing the user to indicate whether an additional action should take place before Writeback, after Writeback, before and after, or neither. Before jumping into an example, please remember to carefully consider how the use of this feature and the data it produces will be managed within your group or organization. All right. With that said, let us switch over to Tableau Prep to walk through writing data back to your database. If you have watched my video on creating a dynamic calendar table, then this flow should look familiar. At runtime, the flow accepts a start date and an end date from the user and generates a calendar table spanning that period. Instead of writing the output to a published data source on my Tableau server, I'll write the data back to a table within my MySQL database. That can be achieved by adding an output node with a specific configuration. In this case, we want to save the output to a database. After selecting database, I can then configure the connection. I'll choose MySQL from the list of supported databases. You'll notice most of this dialog box is already filled in because I have configured this connection in the past. When configuring the connection for the first time, you will need to populate all the details. In my case, I simply need to provide the password. After connecting, I need to choose the table that I want to write to or indicate I would like to create a new one at flow runtime by typing in the desired table name and clicking Create New Table. For this example, I'll call my table Dynamic Calendar. I'll keep the default option of append to table. This creates the table if it doesn't already exist when the flow is first run. Subsequent runs and the corresponding records are appended to the pre-existing table. Before continuing further, I will go ahead and document this output node for clarity. Let's name the output node write2db, short for database, and add a brief description stating that we're going to create or overwrite the existing calendar table within the MySQL database. All right, with that, the next step is going to be to run the flow. Let's go ahead and do that. The flow is successfully executed. Let's now double check that the table has been created and the table has the contents that we expect it to have. To do that, I'm going to switch over to MySQL Workbench. Okay, so I've switched over to MySQL Workbench. Let's now query from that table that we were supposed to have created. So that table was dynamic calendar and it should sit in the schema SQL short reads. Okay, so we've verified that the table has been created and the table contains the contents we expect. So what we should be seeing here is we should be seeing one row per date value occurring between years 2020 and 2025 endpoint exclusive on the right-hand side. So one row per date starting with January 1st, 2020, all the way through December 31st, 2025. 24. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's just do that to verify this. And I'll do calendar date. And if we scroll down to the bottom, we should see December 31st, 2024. And that's what we see. Okay, so we've successfully used Tableau Prep to write back our calendar table or our calendar data to a table called dynamic calendar. Now, suppose you want to actually log all of these write back events, whether it be just for this flow or across multiple flows that you are running on a daily basis, weekly basis, or whatever frequency. We can easily do that. So we can do that using both of these tools. So what we will need to do is we'll create a table that serves as the write back log. And I've already written this code out, so we're not going to do that here live on this session. But to briefly explain how this is going to work, we're going to create a table called the write back log. It's going to have a few columns in there. So write back ID, which is an auto incrementing primary key, a writer, so who wrote the data to the table name, so the table that was actually written, and the date the data was written to the table. So we'll create this table. And then this is a very important step. You may not find it necessary, but for me, if I'm going to create a write back log, I don't just want to know the table that was written, the date. I want to know also who performed that action, right? So who wrote to the table. To do that, unfortunately, we're going to have to create a trigger, a very simple trigger that says, before inserting each row into the write back log, set the writer value to the user performing that write. And this is going to allow us to ensure that this writer value is populated with that user's ID. So I'm going to go ahead and create this trigger. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this simple insert statement that says insert into the write back log the table name and the write back date, given the values dynamic calendar. So this is the table we created using Tableau Prep, and the current date and time. But I'm not going to run this in MySQL, right? Because what I want to do is I want to use Tableau Prep to say, hey, if my flow has successfully executed, then record that successful execution and that write back event. So I'm going to take this piece of code, and I'm going to switch back over to Tableau Prep. And I'm going to take advantage of the custom SQL feature in this output node. I'm going to take the code that I just copied and pasted and put it in the after section. So this code here is going to execute after each successful execution or write back event. And as a result of doing that, putting this code in here, we're going to populate our write back log. So the write back log is going to contain a row containing a table name dynamic calendar, the sysdate, and of course, because we created the table a moment ago that logs the writer's username and the write back ID, we're going to have a write back log that contains all of that content. So let's go ahead and run this. We're going to run this again. What's going to end up happening is we're going to end up overwriting our dynamic calendar table with the same data. But this time, after the successful execution of this flow, the write back log is going to be populated stating that I executed this flow, and as a result, I wrote this data back to the dynamic calendar table at a specific particular point in time. So whatever the result of sysdate function is. So let's go ahead and remove the semicolon because that's not going to be necessary for this custom SQL dialog box, and run this flow. Okay, the flow is successfully executed again. This time we're going to switch back over to MySQL Workbench and double check that not only the table has been overwritten or it still exists, but also that the write back log has been populated with this event. So let's switch back over. And let's just come here and rerun this. So the content is still there. So we still have one row per day, starting with January 1st, 2020, and ending with December 31st, 2024. Now, let's check our write back log. So we mentioned that we were going to write to this table. So SQL short reads dot writeback log. Let's check the contents of that table to ensure that what we are expecting to have happened actually occurred. And there you have it. Notice that we have one entry that has recorded that successful execution of the flow. States that I wrote this, so the username SQL short reads at localhost wrote to the dynamic calendar table at this point in time. And this username, if you don't remember, this is actually what I have authenticated with in Tableau Prep. So let's switch back over to Tableau Prep to show that. Go to Edit. You'll see that I have used the username SQL short reads, and that's where it's getting that. And there you have it. We have successfully written the flow's output back to a database table, and even went a step further by using Tableau Prep and MySQL to create a writeback log to keep track of each writeback event. If you enjoyed this video, then please like the video and subscribe to my channel for notifications on future videos. Thank you again, and see you next time.